All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Mainly Hoops podcast where we're covering some ACC team previews. We've got Syracuse we're diving into here. If you are enjoying the content, make sure to like and subscribe. We really appreciate all the support we've gotten so far. But we're going to send it right over to Cody, talk about the offensive strengths a little bit for Syracuse.
Yeah, I think their number one strength is probably their perimeter talent and playmaking overall. I think the duo of Nate George coming from Georgia Tech and JJ Starling, who's been here for a couple of years now, creates for a tough backcourt to guard on the ball, at least. I think they both have the ability to operate and pick and roll and get to the lane and make plays for others. So I think that's going to be pretty key for guys like Nate Kings and Freeman off the catch, and then like Tyler Betsy off the bench, and then Carmelo Anthony's son, who I think is going to be able to come in and kind of light it up as the sixth man for this team. But yeah, I do think the creation of those two is going to be key for this team. It's potentially a weird fit because neither guy shoots it all that well, but George looked a little more comfortable beyond the arc last season at Georgia Tech, and his ball efficiency proves that. I mean, he was 31.4% to as a freshman to 33.9% on 75 more attempts last season as a sophomore. And Starling was a more efficient shooter off the catch with less volume in his career. But it's not really a strength of theirs. And then, like I said, Nate Kingsbury is going to provide that catch and shoot presence to capitalize on these situations.
We're going to flip it over to Marcus for some offensive strengths.
Yeah, I mean, similarly, I think it's the guards, like their ability to control the basketball. I think be able to limit turnovers. We've seen Nate George kind of struggle in the turnover department in his career. Last year, 21.8% turnover rate. A step further, 26.1% in 10 top 50 games. So a little bit of an issue for him, but I think like Starling was right around 13%. He takes care of the ball at a high level. I think you're going to see like a more comfortable Nate George this year where, he's not so heavily relied upon to have the ball in his hands at all times. So I think you're going to see his turnover rate definitely drop there. I think you're going to see, a Syracuse team take care of the ball much better. And Nate George take care of the ball at a higher level as well. I think their experience at the guard spot, right? Like Nate George coming from Georgia Tech, played a big role. He is going to be a junior, but he's, been relied upon, like I said, quite a lot over the last couple of years. And then Starling, of course, has been here a few years. They just have a lot of experience and playmaking out of those guys. I think they're going to be able to get off the bounce and make plays while neither is kind of really an efficient scorer. I think their ability to get off the bounce and still kind of make things happen. And maybe I think you're going to see more efficiency maybe now where they're together. Not so much focus on one. So I think you could see better seasons out of both. And like to your point, Cody, about George and his shooting, while the numbers aren't staggering, he did go up last year and playing off of Starling, who's I think going to be able to get downhill and create better opportunities for him. I think you could maybe even see that number go up a little bit more.
Cody, what's concerning to you for this Syracuse offense?
Yeah, just one other thought about the strength before I get into that. I think Syracuse's transition game is going to be much better than it was last year. I think like Nate George is a big upgrade over Carlos. Just Jaquan Carlos wasn't able to translate his game to the power conference ranks. And this year's roster has more athleticism in the front court with Donnie Freeman and William Kyle to get up and down the floor. I just think this team is going to want to play at a much faster pace. Like this reminds me of the group from 23-24 that was led by like Judah Mintz, and then Starling was on this team as well, and then Kadir Copeland, who's at NC State now. It's just a more athletic team across the board that I think is going to want to be more transition reliant. But for my weaknesses, I would just say like the fit and efficiency in a half-court setting. I still think the efficiency is going to be an issue. It could be improved with these guys playing with each other, like George and Starling, that is, creating for each other and others. But they just haven't been all that efficient throughout their career, and they're going to have some things to work out. they have their flaws as scorers. And I think George, like as good of a passer as he is, he has a high assist rate, high turnover rate throughout his career as well. But I think he struggles to get to the paint consistently. Just like he's going to get there more. He kind of needs a ball screen to find his way into the paint. He's not really going to be able to do it on his own in a half court setting. So that's one issue that I have. And then there's some trusted shooters on this roster, but I'm not going to call it like a major strength. Like we don't, like Tyler Betsy is fine. Like obviously Kings is really good. He shot at 44% and he's got a lot of versatility on the perimeter. He'll be great for them. And then Kai Anthony's a known shooter, but we just don't know like what the shot selection looks like. I mean, he's known more as a tough shot maker, just very similar to his dad throughout his NBA career. So we'll see what the efficiency looks like in his first year of college basketball. And I think Donnie Freeman's going to be really important for the half court offense, but he's not like a high level decision maker, and he didn't get to the rim at a super high volume. So I think that kind of caps his upside in a half court setting.
Marcus, what are you concerned about with this roster? Offensively?
I just had one main concern. I mean, they're like, just to go off of what Cody said, he makes valid points, but my main concern is like the depth of perimeter shooting. Like I said, I think Nate George could potentially shoot it better this year. We've kind of seen the same story with JJ Starling now for a few years, where he's, in the mid to high 20% from three. Nate King's 44.4% last year. He's really like going to be their mainstay as a shooter. And then Kyan Anthony, I said maybe, like I think he's a talented shooter, but kind of seeing how it translates to Syracuse, we'll see. And then I do think Donnie Freeman has some upside there. He was 12 for 36 from three last year. So maybe there's some potential for growth from beyond the arc there, but I definitely wouldn't consider it a strength, and I wouldn't consider it a strength of the Syracuse team in general. So that's kind of where I'm at with them. I think, like we talked about in their strengths, they have two guards that are going to be able to create for others. Just whether or not they're efficient, like you said, in the half court, I think they're going to be much better in transition. Running the floor, guys like you said, Freeman and William Kyle, who both I think are capable of running the floor. Like we saw William Kyle last year at UCLA, and in a system, quite frankly, that doesn't really fit him. So maybe now like they're able to run the floor more with two bigs that can both get up and down and create opportunities there to kind of mask their perimeter shooting woes.
Let's switch to the other side of the ball here and talk defensively and continue. Well, start out with the strengths here. Cody, we'll go with you.
Yeah, I think the front court, like wing length and athleticism is probably their main strength. I think there's a lot of interchangeable 3s and 4s, and then obviously you add William Kyle at the 5, and then a guy off the bench and Ibrahim Soare coming from Georgia Tech. I think that just provides some athleticism basically with every single guy that comes into the game. They all possess like mobile size to guard on the perimeter while being able to hold their own against size. And I think their transition defense is going to vastly improve as well, since they don't really have a weak link in that area anymore. Sorry, Eddie Lampkin, they just weren't really a great transition defender. He kind of just struggled to get up and down the floor. And this team's just going to look different as a whole, really on both sides of the ball with his absence now. I think this element, the athleticism element, is going to allow them to be a little more aggressive on this end, similar to the team 2 years ago that ranked 33rd nationally in turnover rate. I don't think they quite get to that number just because I think Judah Mintz kind of carried the way in that area, and they don't really have a guy to replace that necessarily, but they can cover pick and roll in multiple ways now with William Kyle being able to play at the level or be a drop defender with his rim protection. And yeah, I think Syracuse improves as a whole on the defensive end because of that. Effective field goal percentage aspect for Red Autry teams so far has been pretty bad. They've ranked 301st and 276th nationally in 2 seasons. So I'm going to need for him to prove to me that he can like uphold a great defense, but I do think this is like the best roster that's capable of doing it.
Any strengths for you?
Yeah.
Anything to add?
I think like positional size and versatility, like Cody said, they're like William Kyle, I think, is the tallest guy in their top 10 at 6'9". So I think, but him and Donnie Freeman both are really good athletes. I think they're going to be able to switch or be able to hold their own against multiple different guys. And then I think like the defensive rebounding aspect, we saw Donnie Freeman, while he only played 14 games last year, like 31.2% defensive rebound rate. I think they should be able to rebound the ball pretty well on the defensive end. And then like the only other thing, I guess, like Starling and Nate George aren't necessarily known as like great backcourt defenders, but I think they can be good backcourt defensive playmakers, like, generating some steals and getting out in transition, where I've said, like, I think this is where they're going to be able to have some more success this year, running the floor with, all five guys. So I could see that as a potential strength as well.
Cody, what do you see for weaknesses for this Syracuse defense?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the backcourt could be a little bit better from a playmaking perspective, but I still think this is like the glaring issue of this roster. Like, I think Nate George is a pretty bad on-ball defender, and Starling doesn't play with energy for all 40 minutes. So I see that as like a kind of a red flag, and like there just isn't really anybody off the bench from a guard perspective that I really feel great about. Like Kyan Anthony is fine. Like he possesses length to guard multiple positions, but he's not a hyper athlete. And then 4-star Luke Fennell like isn't the most athletic guy either. So I just don't really think there's guys off the bench that can provide a spark if those guys are really lacking when they're on the floor together. But yeah, I think the backcourt kind of being an issue is why I think the front court is good. I mean, they're going to be a little bit more aggressive in pick and roll coverage, so they can kind of optimize their turnover forcing abilities there. But yeah, and another weakness, I think compared to last year, I think defensive rebounding is going to be a weakness. And they finished 29th nationally in defensive rebounding last year, and they retain Freeman, who's going to be on the floor a lot more this year, hopefully, like barring injury. I mean, like you said, 31.2% defensive rebound rate. But I think the more aggressive they are defensively, the more they're forced in the rotation, the worse they're going to get on the glass. And then, like at the 5 position, I do think rebounding is an issue with William Kyle. He's more of an offensive rebounder, more of a rim protector, more just using his athleticism as like a recovery defender. And Eddie Lampkin, like that was a strength of his, was on the defensive glass. And yeah, I just think there's a drop off there in that area. So I think they're probably going to be in like the hundreds nationally in defensive rebounding. I don't see them getting anywhere close to like 29th or 30th.
Do you share these concerns, Marcus?
First of all, shout out Cody's guy, Eddie Lampkin.
Yeah,
not my guy at all.
Love him.
Sorry, Q's fans.
But no, I think for me, it's like the rim protection depth. Like William Kyle is kind of like the rim protector. Granted, he had an 8.9% block rate last year at UCLA, and what did he play for minutes last year? I know it wasn't crazy, especially like he played 23% of minutes, so just under 10 minutes a game. So I guess that's my main concern is like the depth that they have at protecting the rim. Like I think, like we've hit on, they're going to be able to be versatile and switch and cover things a lot of different ways, and kind of be in scramble mode on the defensive end because a lot of guys can do a lot of different things. But this is one area of concern is like their rim defense, especially where William Kyle now is going to be asked to play a significant amount more than we saw him play last year at UCLA. And like he wasn't overly impressive in the minutes that he did play at UCLA, particularly like on the offensive end. He was just kind of a lob threat and offensive rebounder. So I think like you're relying on a guy that in his transfer up to a power conference team wasn't overly impactful. And outside of him and the rim protection standpoint, like you don't really have anybody else.
All right, let's move along here to the X factor and the MVP we have for the squad. Cody, what do you think?
Yeah, I almost went with the same player for both, but ultimately I just went Donnie Freeman as the X factor. I just think there's too much upside with his game to not make him the X factor here. I mean, he averaged 13.4 points, 7.9 rebounds, 1.5 assists in 25 minutes a game. He's probably going to get far more than that this season. I would expect him to get 30 plus, and hopefully he stays healthy and plays every single game this season. And I think he's going to be, if this half court offense is going to be at least serviceable, I think it's going to be because of Donnie Freeman's versatile presence. As you know, he's a 3-level scorer, right? There's definitely 3-level scoring traits there. He can score through the post against smaller players, and he's shown an ability to knock down the three. So yeah, I think he's definitely the X factor on both sides of the ball. Ultimately, I went with my MVP as Nate George, just because I think the playmaking is going to be big. I think his playmaking for others when guys like, Starling and Nate Kings are on the wing, like they're going to need someone to create a little more efficient offense, like as opposed to what Jaquan Carlos was providing for this offense last year. He just really struggled as an all-ball creator, turned it over a little bit too often, just wasn't really ready for the power conference level. And I just think Nate George is a big upgrade. He's going to be able to uphold this offense to an extent.
All right, what do you think for X Factor and MVP? I know you guys don't agree completely on one of these.
Yeah, X Factor, I went same. Donnie Freeman, like Cody said, his versatility, his upside. I think his ability to potentially also space the floor on the offensive end, if that can continue to grow for him. I just think his ability to impact the game in every aspect, really, transition, offense, defense, is just really high. As for MVP, I've actually changed my mind because my bold prediction would just completely wipe out this MVP pick. So I'm just going to stay consistent here and say my MVP is Donnie Freeman as well. I'm just really high on his upside. Like, I know he only played 14 games last year, but the numbers were really good in that sample size. And if you just watch the tape, like it looks like he's going to make a big leap this year. I think he's going to break out. He did kind of break out in his 14 games, averaging basically 14 and 8. But I think we're going to see a bigger breakout for him this year.
No JJ Starling.
No, I changed my mind.
Can't do it.
No, my bold prediction is just gonna counteract everything I could say.
All right, take it away. I want to hear the bold prediction.
Yeah, let's just go with you. Bold prediction.
Well, are we going to talk ceiling floor? So I'll go ceiling floor first. Ceiling, middle of the pack in the ACC. I don't really think this team is like superb in any way. I kind of think we've hit that on the head, but floor, I think like bottom 4 of the ACC. Like if defensively. If William Kyle isn't the rim protector that they expect, or, he can't play the minutes that, they need him to play. And then on the offensive end, if they're not able to really shoot the ball or get out in transition, I could see them really struggling in the half court. So I guess I could see them in the bottom 4, not the bottom, but probably like maybe 4th from the bottom, I think, 3rd or 4th from the bottom. Bold prediction, Donnie Freeman breaks out, leads the team in scoring, rebounding, and field goal percentage outside of dunk merchant William Kyle.
Yeah, had to switch it up from JJ Starling with that prediction. I agree. Cody, let's pass it.
That's a fair bold prediction for Donnie Freeman. I'd be surprised if he didn't lead in rebounding. I mean, scoring, there's a real chance he definitely leads in scoring. We'll just see how many shots JJ Starling is going to take every game to get to his 20. But I think I would agree. I think the ceiling is more middle of the pack. I mean, Red Autry's had really good rosters. I mean, really talented rosters, really athletic rosters, and they just haven't really come together. I mean, a defense that has guys like Malik Brown, I think Benny Williams is pretty solid, Kadir Copeland, Chris Bell, Judah Mintz, and they finish 86th in defensive adjusted efficiency. Like, I think you have to be at least inside the top 50 with that kind of roster. So I am a little bit worried about Red Autry when it comes to elevating rosters or like just elevating a team in general. But I mean, this team probably has more offensive skill and more shooting than he's had in the past couple of years. So I could see them being a little bit better on that end. But his best finish in his 2 seasons, it was 66 on offense, which was with that 23-24 team. So yeah, I'll say middle of the pack is where their ceiling's at. And I would be pretty much in line that bottom 5 is realistically the floor and they don't have a postseason.
Bold prediction, Code?
Oh, bold prediction is if they finish bottom 5, I think Red Autry can get fired. I just like he's accumulated too much talent over these 3 years to have not even been in the conversation to make a tournament. So I think if they do the same thing, I think he's probably going to be out the door, even though he's been an assistant here for a while under Jim Boeheim. So, but I mean, it would be tough for them to part ways, but I just think it might be something that has to be done.
All right, we're going to wrap things up here. As always, thank you for listening to the Mainly Hoops podcast.